Okay, so in today's video on this S2000, I'm going to be actually replacing the current stereo that's in the car right now. Can't really see too well, but I have an aftermarket Alpine unit in there. This is the factory head unit. Main reason why I'm putting this back in is I don't actually use the radio too much, but when I do, I would like to have functionality of the controls. So in the S2000, just show you, we can't really see it that well, but on the driver's side of the steering wheel is where you can see basically audio controls. So I would like to have that. It's relatively simple. It just kind of lets you choose your volume, etc. But with this Alpine unit, it doesn't let you do that. So that's why I'm going to be throwing this guy back in. So you could probably just use this as a quick, how to install a stereo into an S2000. I believe the AP2s are a little bit different from the AP1s because of this center console portion. I think the AP1s have a lot simpler, so there might be some steps that you don't have to follow, but this is what I'm going to be doing. This car is a 2004, so it's the start of the AP2s, but I'll just walk you through on exactly what I'm going to be going through. So the first thing that we want to do is to remove this center console portion. Basically, from what I've read, is there's a kind of perforated leather portion. You want to kind of try to grab along the edges there on either side to pop that up. So just like that. Don't mind some stuff I have in there that's rattling around. And then we're going to go over to the front of the car. Actually, I think the next portion is this cup holder area. So that's loose now, and then we kind of get to the front, and we'll just work either side up. So just like that, we should be good. And then I believe it's a lot easier to take the steering knob, not the steering knob, the shift knob out. So we'll just go ahead and do that as well. Okay, so it turns out you don't actually have to remove the entire thing. What I did was I just put the gear lever into reverse just so it gives me enough room to pull this back. So once we have that back, there's this trim piece here that sits basically in front of the radio, and all you have to do is, the first thing that I did was I grabbed basically the door section and pulled from the bottom, and it unclips from there, and then basically you just make your way up towards the top and pull it out there. I believe the one thing that is different in terms of the AP2s and the AP1s, the AP1 you don't actually have to remove the center console portion. I think you can just remove the door assembly off right away. With the AP2s you have to slide this back because this front portion of the console actually covers a spot on the door itself, so you want to have that out of the way so you can actually slide this unit out. The next thing, I believe on the later generation, so on the 2006 and up, so all the way up to 2009, there's a airbag sensor indicator basically at the top here, so there'll be a harness that you have to basically unplug to remove that door assembly. So the next thing that we want to do, if you can see there, we have basically 3 screws on either side. And I believe the only ones that we actually have to take out are the top and the bottom ones on both sides. The middle one can stay, so we'll just use a Phillips head screwdriver to get those out. Okay, so basically after you have those screws removed, you can just slide the entire stereo assembly out. And so for me, I had an aftermarket one here, so it basically had the antenna adapter, the harness adapter, etc. that was plugged in. If you pull out it from your car, the factory one, you'll have these 2 plugs, the blue and the white, and then also your antenna adapter, and that's it. I just kind of went ahead and removed all the aftermarket stuff, so it had basically the harness adapter, the adapter for the antenna, and then it had a USB line kind of all fished out through there. I just pulled that all out because I'm not going to be using it because I'm obviously throwing in the factory head unit, but if you wanted to put in an aftermarket one, that's basically what you would do. So if we look basically at my car, we had this adapter harness that plugs from our factory wiring into the actual head unit itself, and this is very common just on normal head units. You'll just have, you know, maybe some subwoofer controls. The line that's kind of at the furthest end, that's your antenna adapter. And then this car had USB as well. And then this is where the harness would normally go that plugs in, that adapter harness that goes from the aftermarket stereo to your stock harness. But since we're putting everything back in, all we have to do is reconnect it. I have the factory head unit here. So basically you can see our antenna is going to slide into basically a section that's on the left there right now. And then the blue is obviously going to go in the bigger section because it's the bigger harness that we're going to be plugging into, and then also the white plug that's going to be going in this corner as well. So once we do that, we should be able to put everything together and have the factory radio back in. Kind of pause the video here for a sec. The one thing that I wanted to mention was that you probably want to just try to turn on the car and test the stereo out before you put everything back together. So this is obviously, you know, with the stereo, the harness connected, etc. I did that on my car and I actually found that it wasn't working. So I thought, okay, maybe there's something wrong with the factory head unit. Swapped the aftermarket one, still had the same issue. Basically everything else in the car worked fine, but that wasn't working. So I did some reading online, and it turns out basically that the ACC, I think that's the accessories fuse, tends to blow sometimes when you're doing these stereo installs. So I checked that, sure enough, it was blown. Basically replaced that, put it in the factory head unit again, and it worked out fine. So that's just kind of something I wanted to let you know, that before you assemble everything, just take a moment to test and make sure that everything is working and functioning properly. Okay, so now basically obviously the install of the factory stereo, after you plug in your harnesses, you slide the stereo back in. The 4 screws that we removed before, we just mount those up. You will want to take the brackets off of your existing stereo if to kind of swap it over. And they're actually labeled left and right, so it's pretty easy. So you just they're just attached with 2 Phillips screws on either side of the stereo. And then you have 2 screws from there that bolt in, that were the 4 that we removed before. So to get this trim piece back on, basically it's really simple. The thing that I found, so you want to, if you're not removing the actual center console, make sure you have it pushed far back enough. Basically, if you put it into either 2nd, 4th, 6th, or reverse, it should give you enough room. I have it in reverse right now. That'll give you enough room to clear the clips that go on the bottom piece here. So I lined that up first, slid that in, and then basically just opened this up and worked my way around to make sure that everything was seated properly. So all we have to do is basically go back to our center console. And this one, it's going to be fairly simple. All we have to do is make sure that everything's lined up. Do that right now. Put the car back into neutral, and it just kind of slides into place. And then we just go around and make sure that all the clips, are pushed in. So let's go ahead, kind of work our way at the front here. It seems like there's a clip basically on either side of the shift boot. So you just push those down. We'll go back to the cup holder area. Basically, we'll go back to the shifter again. So kind of 4 corners there. The cup holder area, that hasn't been done. And then also the back where we have this padded area. So yeah, the cup holders is just kind of further back here. And then we have 2 clips at the back there. So with that all in, we're pretty much good to go. So that's all you need. Obviously, with a... Here, I'll show you some of the stuff with the aftermarket one. The aftermarket one, you'll have a harness. This one was basically a harness adapter was bought. So this mates to the OEM side of the harness, and then you just basically connect it up to the harness that comes with your head unit. And then anything else, the other thing is the antenna adapter. So we just plug the antenna into here. And really, for this head unit, it had USB, etc., and some other things, but that's kind of just individual to each head unit. So yeah, so the main reason, again, like why I installed this was so I can get controls of the factory stuff on the side here. Obviously, I think you can get basically an adapter that'll work with any aftermarket stereo to comply with those. But for me, since I don't actually, like, honestly, this car, it's not really the best for listening to stereo stuff in my opinion. I generally just like to drive with the top down. I don't really listen to music that much, but in the off chance that I do, or if I'm going for a longer drive, etc., I just thought it would be nice to have the controls handy. So that's why I basically went with the factory stereo again. But yeah, so hopefully this helps. Obviously you can use this as a tutorial on how to basically install a stereo, a new aftermarket one. It's just basically the same thing on removing and then putting back together. And yeah, that's really it. So obviously this doesn't, it's not really a modification, it's almost like a demodification, but it's just kind of the route that I wanted to go in. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and look forward to the next S2000 video. Thanks for watching.